Hi, I'm Mark Ritterman, one of the developers of UnitHero.com. This is the first video blog of a series we're planning to shoot, sharing some great ways of using thinking tools in your classroom. For each vlog, we'll be focusing on a particular tool from the UnitHero Teacher's Toolkit. Today, I'll be discussing the question key. The question key was created by Tony Ryan as one of his thinker's keys, and we'll be discussing his other thinking tools later in this series. The question key simply asks students to create questions that elicit a particular answer. You give them the answer, and they formulate the questions. By asking students to form questions, we're able to gauge their understanding of the topic. Thinking about your own experiences, it's impossible to create good questions if you have no idea what you're talking about. Like now. What do I mean by good questions? Good question! Thank you! A really good way to work out if it's a good question is you cannot simply Google the answer. You can't just Google it. You may like to try using the question key to find out what your students know about a topic before you start teaching it. For example, if you're studying recycling, you could use the question key to ask your students to think about questions that have recycling as the answer. An example of what students may write. What is something that will help sustain life on Earth? What is it called when I put something in the recycling bin? What is it called when you go backwards on a bicycle? The quality of your students' questions will assist you in understanding where they're at. Specifically, you will learn which students know something about the topic, which students have the capacity to think creatively when they don't know the answer, which students have the literacy skills that enable them to formulate the questions correctly, and which students know very little about the topic. You can get your students to repeat this task at the end of the unit of work, to compare their questions to their pre-test to see what they've learnt. The question key can also be used to immerse your students in numeracy. If you're teaching place value, the answer is 5. Write a question that uses place value. One way to make sure your students think about their responses is to ask one student at a time and make sure no answer is repeated. This is an effective way of helping weaker students, giving them an opportunity to listen to other responses. You can also use the question key to extend your students by adding why to their responses. When studying the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, the answer is Atticus Finch. Who is a character in To Kill a Mockingbird that represents a moral hero? Then add why to the question. Why has Atticus Finch been portrayed as a moral hero in To Kill a Mockingbird? Your students are then able to go into further detail, answering the why question. You can also use the question key in a cooperative learning situation. Your students can individually generate questions. Then, in a small group, your students can rank the questions from most difficult to answer to least difficult to answer. For example, your students might rank the following question. What would be an appropriate sustainable solution in a coastal location? What is it called when we use wind to generate electricity? What is one of the most favoured forms of sustainable energy? What is generated by wind turbines? What is a form of sustainable energy that starts with W? Have a go at using the question key in your classroom, and let us know how it went. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.
Recycling?
Yeah.